Well, welcome back to Winding Down with Padre. We're still on our whiskey edition.
Mm-hmm.
What do we have? Well, first of all, my name is Father Michael Delpham.
Father Casey Duga.
And what do we have today?
We have some Basil Hayden, which is a Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. If anyone knows of the running joke we've been having about my initial definition on bourbons, this is a bourbon from Kentucky. That's why it's called Kentucky Straight. It has to be made in Kentucky to be called Kentucky Straight Bourbon. Basil Hayden is a very good whiskey. It's a good middle-of-the-road brand. In fact, it has a Catholic connection.
Tell me.
The Hayden family were Catholics, which is not surprising with Louisville being originally a French town. But the original family, were practicing Catholics. In fact, if for some who want a little whiskey special fact, the predecessor to Basil Hayden is a familiar, cheaper whiskey that everyone knows. The predecessor is Old Grandad whiskey. So Old Grandad is the pre-Prohibition 1890s way that this family made whiskey. Basil Hayden, of course, is a much better bourbon, a much higher quality bourbon. Thank goodness we haven't moved past such things. But again, really cool, Catholic talk show, Catholic bourbon.
Cheers.
Cheers.
All right. I did not know any of that. Well, listen, I debated this. I got to give you a disclaimer. So this is being aired the week that I will be away on my elk hunting trip. I hesitated to say it because I didn't want to make half of our audience incredibly jealous. And then half of our audience, incredibly scandalized. I thought this guy took a vow of poverty. I did not take a vow of poverty.
We took a
simplicity.
Not even a vow, it's a promise.
Yeah, so I will be on a very simple hunt. I will let the smaller elk go free. I will let the smaller elk pass.
How very pastoral of you.
For the first couple of days. So hopefully when I come back, we'll have some elk report. So
yeah.
I'm pretty fired up. For those of you who are a little nervous about me going elk hunting, I'm going hunting with a bow and arrow, and I will be on the ground. So,
way to live out fair chase.
And Father Duga has been so courageous, so selfless, as to say, "You go, Father. You go for the good of the parish. You go. I'll stay behind. I will serve the parish while you're gone. I'll take all the masses." How selfless of you. What a servant. They trained you well.
Obedience makes that kind of selfishness so easy.
At the same breath, he's planning his duck hunt in Arkansas.
Yes.
Just to make sure, we have a balance. So it's going to be great.
Oh, yes, it will be. So what we're going to talk about tonight?
Oh, well, last week we talked about beauty. We talked about how to encounter the Lord in the woods, which some people, hopefully, that connected with you. But some of you may be saying, wait a minute, time out. Isn't there a commandment, I think I read it, on the top 10 list about thou shalt not kill? So what are y'all doing talking about killing animals when God says thou shalt not kill? What about St. Francis? Doesn't he love animals? And what about PETA? For those of you PETA haters, listen, I think the Lord offered salvation for all those members of PETA. I really do.
Well, I'm a big fan of people that eat tasty animals, No, but all joking aside, there is a group of people called People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. And as hunters,
I didn't even really know what that stands for, so I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals.
I ethically treat animals?
But they go to an extreme with, they consider any type of harm to an animal that of unethical. So getting to this idea of thou shalt not kill, one of the commandments, this is God giving Moses on Mount Sinai this great commandment to bring holiness to the people of Israel. Well, we have to preface this. When God is talking about thou shalt not kill, He's talking about thou shalt not kill another human being. Thou shalt not kill another who is made in the image and likeness of God. Because in that way, it's an injustice to kill another. Now, there are times that just killings can occur, such as in self-defense and wartime. And there's certain situations where the taking of another life, but it's a very serious matter, and it's not to be ever taken lightly. You talk to anybody who served in the military and had to do this, or has served in law enforcement, and those times they've had to draw their weapon haunt them because of how serious it is to take another life. Animals, however, are a different category of being. So we are rational beings, we'd say. We have an intellect and the will. We're made in the image and likeness. We have a soul, a human soul. Animals have their own soul, but that's a lesser soul. It's an animal soul. It's right above plants. So if we're going with mineral, plants, animals, humans, that's the hierarchy.
We're not going to talk about are there animals in heaven, because
we're not going to get into
this a detour.
That's a whole other story. We'll get to that when St. Francis's Day come around. We're blessing pets or whatever.
Right.
But no, so like in Genesis, God gives man dominion. We talked about last week. He's made us in his image and likeness. He's given us dominion over everything in creation. And with that dominion comes stewardship. And the opposite of stewardship is abuse of what is given. That's an abuse of authority and power that God has given us over creation. And we talked very beautifully about that. So if you want to hear more about that aspect of man, go back to the previous video that we did the week before. But here we're talking about animals. So initially, Adam and Eve didn't eat meat. In fact, we don't hear about the eating of meat until Genesis 6, after Noah and the flood. God then allows them to eat meat. He says, you may now eat of the animals. So there's this aspect of, when Adam and Eve were in the garden, they had everything provided for them they didn't have a need to take the animals at the time. But after the flood, things have changed. And now they need other sources for sustenance. In fact, God kills some animals to make them leather hide to make clothing for them. So we even see that, like, not really the eating of meat, but animals have a proper use for meat.
An order.
There's an order. There's an order of being. There's a natural order where man makes use of animal for the good of him, for him to continue to propagate and have life and have a good life. Man dominates animals or has dominion over animals by domesticating. That's where the term domesticating comes from, us having dominion over them. We domesticate oxen, we domesticate horses, we could domesticate all our pets and everything like that. These all started as animals that had really legitimate uses, such as being a source of power for plowing the land, or, for example, with oxen hide for clothing and footwear and things like that, things to make man's journey in life a little easier. And even hunting is talked about in the scriptures. It talks about the psalmist as a fowl, like talks about the fowler, and talks about God as one who sets snares to catch us,
right?
Catch our hearts, and things like that. We hear about pursuing of animals with some of the kings of Israel and all that. So hunting is, you have to look for it in some of the deep. It's like going to the B side of a record. You got to go a little deeper into the scriptures, but it's there.
Yeah, and you use that word stewardship. I mean, it's understanding what stewardship means. Like, we have been entrusted with creation, like we talked about last week. But it's being responsible with what we have been entrusted with. It's not to ravish, creation, to just drain it till the ends where there's no more. No, like, those of us who are hunters, like, we understand the responsibility we have to preserve what we have been given. Like, to keep a heritage of hunting means we have to conserve. Like, but there's a conservation effort of. That's why we put bag limits on animals, on fowl, and bag limits on fish and on animals. So, like, look, go and kill to feed your family, but don't abuse. Like, be responsible. There are limits, and we put limits on ourselves.
It's virtue.
Yeah.
It's a practice of virtue to be in the median, to be in the middle ground, to not be in excess, but to not be in deprivation. Yeah. And there are some people who legitimately, like, for example, in Alaska, some places out west, they legitimately hunt for sustenance. It's part of their natural, it's a social justice issue for them to have the ability to hunt, because otherwise they couldn't live where they live for their home. So there's an aspect of that. And of course, in modern times with modern farming and all that, some make the argument that it's harder to justify hunting, but for me, it's by hunting, we do a lot more good by the ammo we buy, by the rifles we buy, by the hunting gear, by the taxes we pay for land, by all these things we pay. There are taxes built into all those items we pay for that go towards conservation, for preserving habitat, for reintroducing species. So in a way, by us taking animals, we're giving more than we're taking. Now there are some that poach and do that. That's an injustice. Those that take beyond what they should, those that kill for the sake of killing. Look, taking for meat, there's still sport in it, but those who take solely for the means of sport, there's an issue there. That's becoming an excess.
Yeah, I am internally trying to control myself because, like, this is a whole nother rant that I could go on about, like, the domestication of men. Like, like almost outlawing hunting, which brings out, I think, something very innate to man to pursue, to go after, to go out, to defend, to protect. When you begin to domesticate a man, when you begin to limit him to going to a grocery store, to buying prepackaged things that are sealed and sterile, you begin to sterilize and domesticate him. And a lot of our lady friends get angry because we're not the man that they want. We don't go out, we don't pursue, we don't go chase, we don't defend and provide for the families. Well, what I have experienced with my own friends is, please God, and we'll talk about this in a couple of weeks, but the healthy camps, the healthy camps.
Yes, there is unhealthy, there is healthy.
When actually the camp renews and rejuvenates and restores, and it brings out something in a man that they go back to their home and they're better. Most camps. We'll talk about the difference in coming episodes.
Yes. So yeah, the thing is just like, I think of, it's either Lewis or Tolkien that talks about, or maybe Chesterton, I forget who. It's one of the British, very Christian writers of the late 19th, early 20th century. They talk about the men with empty chest because they don't have the heart that should be there, because society has beat them down into the point that they don't have the daring, or they don't have the courage, or they don't have what is necessary to truly be a good man, because they've been, I love that you talked about domesticated. Of course, there's some that talk about toxic masculinity, but I think that's an over
the machismo, right?
Yeah, there's a machismo, there's a bravado, there's something that's false in there, but authentic. I think the baby's getting thrown out with the bathwater in today's society.
The heroic.
Exactly.
We talk about the greatest generation, right?
Exactly.
The World War II generation of those men who just went out and fought for our country.
For 4 years. And so it's a completely different phenomenon than we know even with our combat veterans today. Guys that served in the Great Generation, they left home. They didn't come home for 4 years. They were in 4 years of solid combat. And it changed them.
Sure.
You talk to any of them that were from that time period, and there's a glassiness that comes over. There's a reminiscing. There's something that's there that only those that were with them or those who experienced combat understand. Of course, it's different today. Out of respect to our combat veterans who are today, y'all have done an amazing job.
You are appreciated.
Exactly. We lift our glass to you because of everything you've done. But y'all have a different experience because y'all get to rotate home. Guys like your grandfather who served in the Corps in the Pacific.
Yeah.
They left home and they were gone.
Sure.
And that changed you. That matures you in a different way, than, and unfortunately a lot of men today have not had that experience of encountering those men who have gone into such situations. And those who are in a position who can bring over those virtues and those values that come from those who serve, please give it to your children, give it to your nephews, give it to your nieces, give it to those who are willing to listen.
Okay, so as you were talking, just maybe to bring it back to hunting, I realized there's actually a patron saint of hunters.
There's two.
So, the church is saying, hey, it's okay to hunt. It's actually good to hunt. We're gonna name a patron saint for hunters. So, who are the patron saints?
Saint Eustace and Saint Hubert.
Okay.
Both of them became bishops, in fact. They were both young men who encountered Christ. while hunting. Saint Eustace, I think, is the easy. It's either Saint Eustace or Saint Hubert. I forget which one. Both of them. So one of them, in fact, the emblem on a Jägermeister, the buck with or the stag with the cross in the middle.
Right.
That's, in fact, Jägermeister means master of hunters.
Okay.
Jaeger is German for
I was
hunter.
having flashbacks to college. It was
Some of y'all are also
good.
too.
It was not good.
So, but
flashbacks.
Jägermeister means master of hunters. So that image of the deer with the cross, it's either Saint Hubert or Saint Eustace. I'll have to go back and we can maybe put in the show notes.
Sure.
Was hunting as a young man, living a very noble, not really noble. He was a noble, not living a very noble life,
Sure.
you know. And while hunting, he encounters a stag, and there's a cross in the middle of the antlers, and Christ speaks from the cross to him, saying, "Go be my priest. I have called you." He converts, enters the priesthood, eventually is made a bishop, and because of his experience of Christ while hunting, he's the patron saint of hunters. I think Saint Eustace also has a similar. Sometimes the stories of those two get conflated, so
Sure.
whether which one came first.
Yeah, I know you've mentioned oftentimes,
A little slick up there.
but the kind of the, I guess where the just on the forehead, you know, the skull. There's kind of there's a towel like a cross.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so there's something that's there, and it's something powerful. So like they're both patron saints of Saint Hubert and Saint Eustace.
Yeah. Just cool. You know, we were talking about just Peden. I tell you what, I don't know many hunters. I'm trying to think of one that is just, not belligerent's not the right word, but they're just angry at whatever they're hunting. I don't know any hunters. Like most all the hunters I'm a part of and know, they actually have a deep appreciation and love for what they're hunting. Like guys that duck hunt, man, we always talk about how beautiful it is to see ducks. Like we talk about like preserving the migration, preserving land to make sure that we can enjoy the fowl, the animals that, especially deer hunters, man, they watch these animals grow up and they literally like they feed them.
They cultivate them.
Yeah, they cultivate them. It's like, look, I can't wait to see what that one looks like next year. I can't see it. Look how beautiful
in 3
he is.
years,
like,
what's going to happen?
This year he's going to be beautiful. Like, and we try to take ethical shots to where like no one's looking to hurt or wound an animal. In fact, when you watch any outdoor channel, they're so distraught when they wound and have to blood trail an animal.
It's
forever.
fair chase. That's part of fair chase, which is the ethics of hunting. And there's some very good books. I forget. I think it's Colonel Taylor. In fact, I think maybe this might be the name. I may be wrong. But there's an individual who wrote a book on the ethics of hunting. It's on fair chase. So like there are certain hunters who limit themselves in how they take game to give sportsmanship, to give a fair advantage to the animal. You know, it'd be one thing to just put corn out for deer, Not to say those that hunt on high fence over corn are they wrong.
We are about to piss some people.
No, but there's ways that you go about hunting.
Sure.
That it becomes unethical because you're not giving a fair chance, a fair shake to the animal.
Yeah, yeah.
Now I've hunted over feeders. Okay, I'm not condemning anyone for hunting over feeders.
Let's just go there, just because it's going to be a great conversation. So you mentioned fair chase, so maybe some of our viewers don't know the difference between like fair chase and let's obviously we're talking about four-legged animals like fair chase and high fence. So what would be the difference between fair chase and high fence?
Well, high fence you can do fair chase within. Okay. And that's by setting limits on what and how you're taking it. What are the limits? So, for example, fair chase would be like going against the principle of fair chase while on high fence, taking unethically long shots, not or hasty shots on an animal, not taking your time,
right? Because
now you're causing suffering to the animal. Now you're causing a possibility of loss, and an animal could die on its own. There's issues here by being unethical with your shot.
I'm thinking of a particular hunt that I had. By that definition, it wasn't an unethical shot, but it was very inhumane to the animal because it was a horrible shot, and we had to track. Anyway, it's becoming. I'm going from PG to PG-13. We had to track this animal for hours and
Exactly.
hours. It was
Or
horrible.
like for me, for example, like I whiffed on a shot a season back on a deer, and I didn't know if I hit him or not because the gun jerked on me when I fired, and we couldn't find no blood, and it ate me up because I was hasty in my shot. Now I was hunting high fence, and again, there's some hunters, again, it's more of a rolling scale.
It's just what you're comfortable with, what your goals are. Right?
And look, if you got the land and the high fence and all
Absolutely.
that, cultivate some monster bucks, have at it and
I
enjoy
enjoy being with friends hunting high fence.
Yeah.
It's to each his own. I mean,
But there's some hunters that like they get more joy out of hunting on low fence or
Yeah.
on public land.
public land. Absolutely.
And and for some of us, it's the only option we got
Right.
to hunt public land. Which
So free chase, but probably in general, the way people understand it is not high fence. So basically, the animal has every chance,
every advantage,
that they would normally do in their own setting, in their own environment. There's no limitation.
and it's the skill of the hunter now to take the track, to find, to hunt, to take the shot.
Right.
And so look, even for those of us that hunt high fence, we know it's never guaranteed.
Right.
And as one who's hunted high fence, I feel like I'm a defender of the proponent of high fence, just because I've hunted it, and not to judge myself. But I've had my wonderful experience. I took my first buck on high fence, in South Texas. Of course, bucks can still get over a high fence no matter how you do it. They will find a way.
Mm-hmm.
But again, just this idea of the sport of the chase. That's
Sure.
where the fairness, that aspect of fair is. The animal has fair advantage. The hunter has fair advantage. We're on a level playing field of taking, and that's where
Right.
sport comes in. It's unfair when we play regular sports, like football or baseball, and there's an unfair advantage for one team. We don't like that.
Right.
Or if someone cheats, we don't like that in sports. Why not? It's the same that we don't like that when we hear of hunters who cheat in taking game.
Yeah.
We don't like that.
No. So
Like, for example, taking out a season.
Well, exactly. Well, I mean, I know, like public land.
Mm-hmm.
People get jazzed up about hunting. Like, if you kill a mature buck on public land, or you kill like a limit of greenheads on public land, it's a big deal.
It's
it's
like
just
you're
like
a demigod come down from heaven.
you outsmarted them. You found the secret code. I mean, you have to work really hard. Whereas, someone who maybe is illegally baiting on public land, or
Someone throwing down corn for
someone
ducks.
going down and they get their limit. It's like, man, come on, like
It's not the same.
like you broke the rules. It's an unfair advantage, right?
Yeah, so exactly. So, and the thing is, and kind of like going back to with Peter with the ethical treatment, hunters, majority of us, I say 99% of us believe in ethically taking an animal, which means we're using the right loads, we're using the right caliber, we're taking it at good distances, we're having good shot placement.
Yep.
It's important because we want to have a clean kill because we don't want the animal to suffer. Because
Sure.
if that animal is suffering, I mean, how many of us have had to crush a duck's head in the blind because the duck is still alive, even though it's going to die? We don't
Right.
want it just to sit there bleeding out, or there's a more ethical way. You can get the little metal piece.
Oh, right. Yeah, the little, yep.
And you can dispatch the duck in a clean way without having to crush the head. For those of us that want to preserve the mount.
Well, yeah. Well, talking about, you mentioned this is interesting. Just the idea of priest and sacrifice, like animals. I mean,
Yeah,
in the
animals
Old
all
Testament,
throughout
it's
Scripture.
All throughout
Oh
Scripture.
yeah,
right?
and I mean exactly.
Like the Lord said,
offer me bulls and all that and goats.
Once Noah came off the ark,
He sacrificed.
he said, "Build an altar and take the animals that I asked you to put on the ark and sacrifice."
And
them."
also to dispel, God distinguished between clean and unclean animal. For every clean animal that was on the ark, He didn't have just Noah take 2 of those animals. He had him take 7.
Mhm.
Otherwise, there'd be some species of animal that are long gone after Noah got off the ark and sacrificed them.
Yeah, for Jesus. I mean, when Jesus was born,
In the temple, he
two
had
turtle doves,
two
right?
turtle doves for the poor.
And we talked about this for those of you who maybe are parishioners of Sacred Heart in the preaching series. You can go to our website and check out preaching series. Behold the Lamb. We talk about this history of temple sacrifice. The job of the priest were to take the sacrifice offered by the people, which was
They were
often
the first butchers.
living animals. And I don't know if you notice what we wear at Mass, like our chasubles. They were, historically, they were like bibs to guard against the blood splashing on their clothes.
Exactly. In fact,
first butchers. I'm
exactly. Like, in fact, you hear in Scripture, I want from God, I want this particular cut of meat. Or we don't eat this cut of meat. We don't eat the sciatic nerve of the animal for the Jews because of Jacob wrestling with God and his hip getting put out of place, dislocated. Right. So we don't eat the sciatic nerve because that sciatic nerve is important for the hip and all that. You know, they're to boil certain cuts of meat and whatever floats up. That's what for the priests is to take. You know, there's things like that.
And Jesus ate.
Exactly.
He ate lamb. I mean,
exactly. You know, the Passover meal. You know, how can you not have a good Seder / Passover meal, a real one, without the lamb?
Mm.
In fact, depending on either you're reading the Synoptics or if you're reading John, depending on which one you're reading, so the Synoptics are Matthew, Mark, Luke, because we call them Synoptic because there's a synthesis. They're in accord with each other. John is a little different. In one set, we have Jesus celebrating a Seder meal the night before Passover, and that he is on the cross at the same moment the lambs are being sacrificed in the temple. Mm. You know, so like there's different timings, and the gospel writers are trying to highlight the sacrificial nature of Christ, that he is the lamb that is offered up, that he is the bloodied sacrifice, because blood is required to remove the sins in the Old Testament. In fact, during during the Passover, the priest goes into the sanctuary, the Holy of Holies, and sprinkles blood upon the altar as the sin offering.
And upon the people.
Upon the people, exactly. Know? So it's like the proper dispatching and proper use of animals is a biblical concept. Of course, now we are a little different here because we're kind of going into the realm of sport with hunting and all that, but
sure,
it's roots. It's
right.
roots.
Hunting is not disrespecting animals by any chance.
In fact, there's
a
great
actually
honor.
A great honor and respect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so hopefully you've heard us talk about the beauty. I know I find incredible beauty. I'm looking forward, like this elk hunt coming up. I'm just looking forward to the mountains and the majesty of just being in nature and being with friends and being in just clean air. It's going to be incredible.
I mean, I'm looking for my toms and duck blind this season. You know, It's going to be nice. You know, teal has just opened up. Hopefully, I get a few hunts in. I got some leads for some blinds I'm gonna be getting into. So I'm very happy, man. In fact, one of my podnas, who's a fellow priest, he drew him a White Lake lottery tag. So for those of you who are duck hunters know about White Lake with the wildlife management area, you got to put in for a lottery hunt there in the marsh. We got a marsh tag on November 22nd. So
nice.
He called me up. He's like, "Hey, I drew one. I want you in the blind with me." And I'm like, "Yes."
Nice. Is that opening day of Coastal? Or
No.
It's
in the first split. I
Okay.
think it's in the first split.
Yeah, it's not like second weekend maybe.
Yeah, second weekend. So
it's a Monday. Hopefully the migration
Look, I'll take me some.
I'll take down this year.
Yeah, I know, man. I really do hope so. I do have someone that's trying to hook me up with an Arkansas hunt. Don't be jealous of me, you know.
Well, hopefully they come down, man.
Hopefully.
Arkansas is the new Louisiana, and you just got to go up to.
I think we just wait. We gotta wait for some really cold winters. But of course, you know, with the hurricanes we've had, with the warmness, I pray that now we'll get some cold weather. You know, God has blessed us with such warm and hot weather the last few weeks that maybe He'll give us some respite.
Oof. Well, listen, if you have enjoyed our conversation, please like us, share us with your friends. Listen, for those of you who are members of PETA, I'm sure we're going to get some wonderful emails sending my way. We do pray for you, and we love you. You are our brothers and sisters in Jesus. And please know that I love every bit of meat that I cook. Everything I kill, I eat. It's wonderful. We got some elk in the freezer.
Same for me, you know.
Yeah, it just tend respect.
And again, it's like we both are trying to strive for the same goal, but we're achieving it through different ways. So we would be very respectful of you. We ask that you be very respectful of us. in the ways that we go about this.
We always pray before we hunt, and we typically say a prayer before we eat. So, just great respect, man. Enjoy the conversation.
Yeah, this was wonderful. Salud. Cheers.